chance qualifier. We've had plenty of action over the last week. We've got plenty more to come as well, because of course we are working towards Barcelona and those all-important live finals. As you can see on your screen, RIX absolutely dismantled Clash in the first series of our tournament. Doom was unleashed on his AD carries and really made an impact. Following that, we had Team Dark taking on Team Queso, and despite being a one-sided matchup on paper, Team Dark really made Team Queso work for it. And if it wasn't for Vejos on his Akali, which you can see right now on the screen, was pretty insane, I actually genuinely think Team Queso could have been facing the losers bracket. We had Viv going up against Revenant, and unfortunately, despite the rebrand, Revenant not able to match up against the power of Viv, who really came into the last chance qualifier following the performance they left off in the main Wild Rift European Championship. We then had Formulation versus Control, and of course, Formulation, absolute powerhouses in the main WREC tournament, were able to dispatch Control to the lower bracket with relative ease, and we'll be seeing these guys later on today. We've got plenty of hype matchups with those winning teams coming your way. We, of course, then had the losers bracket to work through. We had Clash versus Team Dark. Unfortunately, Clash couldn't make an impact here, and Team Dark were able to put them in the dustbin and consign them out of the WREC last chance qualifier, and they will be, of course, moving on through the lower bracket. We've then had one final matchup, which was going to be Revenant versus Control, and that was an easy win for Revenant. They were very handily able to, for Control, they were very easily able to dispatch Revenant and take their place in the lower bracket, where they'll be awaiting the losers of today's matchups to see if they can progress and get closer to Barcelona. For the time being though, guys, we'll see you in a moment. We're going to dive straight into all of the action here on the last chance qualifiers.
By the way, KTRL won. I'm sure you misspoke.
Everybody round, everybody round, we know we get hype. Everybody round, everybody round, everybody round, everybody round.
Welcome everyone to the WREC Last Chance Qualifier. My name is Scoundrel here, joined by Hell's Devil and Stuart, as we've got two exciting matchups coming your way. Gentlemen, how are you feeling today? It has been a pretty exciting couple of weeks here at WREC, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's been very exciting, and it's only going to get more exciting, especially with the upcoming games, right? RIX against Queso and Viv Esports against Formulation Gaming. This is going to be amazing, Scoundrel. I'm really excited for it.
I'm really excited for it too, Stu. And of course, I think we'll take a chance to look at the bracket to see exactly where we are in the competition as well, to see kind of like those upper bracket and lower bracket situations. Of course, you can see we have our upper bracket games today, which is going to be the RIX GG versus Team Queso matchup and Viv versus Formulation. We also have the lower bracket, which you saw a couple of highlights from on our opening video, and you can see that Team Dark beat Clash, and Control managed to beat out Revenant. It was a 2-1 though at the end. I think Revenant made them work for it just a little bit, but they'll be waiting for the losers of today's matchups so they can then look to continue their own campaign in the last chance qualifier. Now, Stu, RIX versus TQ, Viv versus Formulation. These are some big ticket matchups, right?
These are some huge maps up. I think RIX versus Team Queso is the game that everyone has been waiting for since it was confirmed really a few weeks ago. And now we get to see it, and now we get to see what teams get to make their way to Barcelona as well. But it's going to be a close one with all the changes and everything that's happening in the game at the moment. It's really exciting stuff.
Well, let's take a look today at the predictions that you guys have gone for, including myself. I should be included in this. I technically make predictions. Everybody has gone for RIX apart from Carmeline, but of course she has to back her Team Queso compatriots, and everybody has gone for Viv over Formulation. I genuinely think, Hells, though, that Viv versus Formulation matchup could be a little closer than the predictions kind of illustrate. I know RIX versus Queso could be as well, but I think a lot of us are expecting RIX to win.
I honestly think Viv is going to take it pretty easily, but I think you're so? Right anyways. Because I feel like Viv is insanely good. Like from the performance that we saw from them the other days, I feel like they can pull everything off, right? Like, and that's my opinion. It may get close, of course. We want to have it a close match, but I think they're gonna steamroll them.
That is interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing if that plays out the way that you said. Now, Stu, I think this is where we are going to wave a goodbye to you for the time being. So, Stu, we'll see you a little bit later on. And Hells, we can dive into some of those key headlines coming into today. Now, of course, the big one, the big elephant in the room that we need to address is that 2 new champions are available this week for the Last Chance qualifiers, Shen and Karma, who were recently introduced to Wild Rift.
Yeah, definitely Shen and Karma. And these are also some, like, I love these champions, right? Like, because very skilled players can make some very good plays with these champs. And as we talked about before the broadcast, Shen especially is a very interesting one because of the global ultimate and a very unique playstyle that Shen has. And I feel that in the hands of a very skilled Baron laner, which we know we have in Europe, by the way, the champion is going to be incredibly powerful. And then Karma as well. I feel Karma is one of those champions that's very strong. And I saw a lot of support players playing Karma to kind of get good at her. And I feel she's definitely going to be a priority in this week, right? Pick or ban. I feel like I don't know about Shen. I feel Shen is a bit underwhelming, but Karma, I think she's definitely going to be either like pick or ban.
I think both champions probably will see some kind of featuring across this week. It depends on how much the teams have had the chance to practice. We've seen that when new champions have been enabled, some teams haven't immediately picked them up because they haven't had as much chance to practice with them as they maybe would have liked. Of course, the other important thing this week is that the winners of today's matches are going to Barcelona. They'll be guaranteed to be in Barcelona today. So it's a really, really important set of matches for our guys in the Last Chance qualifier, because this will essentially secure their place alongside Game Lord, who are already there, ready and waiting for those live finals held.
Yeah, that's right. Win this match, you go to Barcelona. It's as easy as that. Lose the match, you have another chance, of course. But if you win, you will definitely go to Barcelona. And even if you lose the match afterwards, you'll still go to Barcelona, but then in a lower seed. But basically, as you said it, you win, you go to Barcelona. So, you know, today's games, that's why I said, like, today's games are going to be incredibly exciting because we have such good teams playing with quite a lot on the line, though. Quite a lot on the line, indeed.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot on the line, absolutely. Right, so that means that we are kind of working our way towards this first match of the day, which is RIX versus Queso. Hells, what are your thoughts on RIX? Well, actually, do you know what? Not your view, Hells. We'll talk about your view maybe later on. Let's bring in Stu to talk about this matchup and see what he has to say.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. Yeah, I got my key points for today's first series, RIX against Team K. So the first point is adapting to the new meta. I feel like RIX came out on top, really, in terms of adapting to the new meta, picking these very unique picks like Graves in the Baron lane, Jinx AD carry as well. And speaking of Jinx AD carry, we're going to be having the battle of what I like to say AD carries down in the Dura lane, because I feel like Doom and Joey are 2 of the best AD carry players that we have currently in the Last Chance playoffs, and I really want to see them on the AD carries and see them pop off. And especially with Karma coming into the mix now, there's been a lot of Karma support being played at the moment in high elo, so that paired with like a Jinx Jhin maybe, I know Hell's excited to maybe try and find out if Jin's going to be picked. And last point is about roaming supports. We always see the roaming supports come back into the meta. We're seeing that supports are not roaming around too much at the moment because of the recent XP changes in 3.1, but I think both Clue and Mephinork have shown that they can roam around and they can definitely make a huge impact on the map. We're getting closer to game number 1. Let's head back to Hell's Scoundrel to get us a little bit closer.
Thanks so much, Stu. I think that's a really nice point to kind of touch on. That is that Doom versus Joey matchup that I'm pretty excited for, because Hells, as I know you're fully aware, we are back into like full-on AD carry meta now. Like AP carries have been almost put to the side a little bit with the Stormrazor changes.
Yeah, definitely. And especially now that the patch has been out for a week already, right? We've seen Doom stream a lot. He played a lot of AD carries, and we both know Joey, and we both know how good he is at it, right? From previous MOBAs up until Wild Rift, this guy has been an utter beast on AD carry champions, an utter beast. So that's what makes this game even more exciting, because Doom against Joey, these are both like, I believe Stuart or you said one of the best AD carries in the current bracket, but I believe they are both the best AD carries in Europe in general. So I'm incredibly excited to watch this matchup between the two, and yeah, we'll see what they pick.
I think that's definitely the case. I really don't want to see those AP carries coming back into play, even though I know they have their place. It just makes for such a boring meta to watch, in my opinion. But hey, that is sometimes what you get in these competitive MOBA games. Now we are working our way towards picks and bans, but I think we've got a bit more time to think a little bit about sort of the rosters as well, and then think about the guys on these two teams. What do you kind of think is going to be, apart from Doom and Joey, where do you see being like a really important part? For me, like I'm looking towards the jungle hells. I think the SE7 Andre matchup will be really important too.
I mean, my instant response would be Acolyte Random, right? Like every matchup is really interesting between these teams because everyone is such a good player, but especially with Shen and with the new items, you know, the Divine Sunder and the Hullbreaker, and especially Random, because we know how Random plays these champions, right? We may see some new crazy picks with some new crazy strategies. And I'm saying crazy because there are so many and we just don't know what's going to be pulled off. And a player like Random, he's just unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do, right?
Yeah, you 100%. And I think Random has the capabilities to play a wide spread of champions that are just like really good in the current meta. Like Divine Sunder meta feels like Random meta to me because that's just the kind of stuff that he likes to play. And Hullbreaker especially. The Graves top lane, he single-handedly brought that Graves top lane into play with the Hullbreaker meta, which is very, very cool to see. And that's what I love about where we are with Wild Rift right now. We're really looking at a meta that is very open to sort of how you want to play the game. You can draft different comps for different things. Objective play is still important. Split push play, while still not 100% there, is definitely on the cards. And, you know, there's just so many different styles of play that you can kind of go for right now. Who do you guys think are going to win, though? This is actually a pretty tough one. I mean, Team Case has clearly got a lot of support, but RIX probably come in as just like the superior team in that sense. So I think there's going to be a really tough call. It could be a close series. I think it might be a close series, but I'm very excited to see which of these two teams is going to sort of be joining Game Lord. I'm sure RIX will be desperate to, given the way it sort of panned out with Game Lord in the main bracket. But there we go. Just on your thoughts, do you think there's any picks that you think are going to be like hotly contested, maybe apart from Karma, between these two teams?
It's a good question. Honestly, like we know Fiora has been contested a lot. I don't think she's gonna be as contested between these two teams. An obvious one would be Corki, right? Like the Corki, we kind of hate to see it because we've seen it so much already. He's very likely gonna get contested, right? Like this is gonna be a champion that both teams are gonna want to pick up because he's just so incredibly powerful and provides so much to both teams. And then honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's not really any champions that stand out in particular for me in the current patch.
I would be thinking about like Varus for these two because I know that Varus still remains like I think a really good competitive pick. Like even though Stormrazor AD carries are big, basically Varus didn't get changed. So Varus is still just like insane because his team fight presence and his poke. And I think Joey loves playing him and Doom will play him. And I think it's very likely going to be a ban because, you know, that Joey's someone that will go on to Varus and is shown to be pretty impactful and he's shown to be really good in it. So I think like Varus could be something that's really hotly contested. I'm interested about Shen because I don't know whether Shen support could be a thing. The only problem with Shen support in this game is that I think that, you know, you're sort of losing the ability to have the side lane presence with the global ultimate. And the only problem with Shen in the Baron lane is his wave clear is absolutely terrible. So like to actually have him pushing in a side lane is obnoxiously hard because you were able to kind of solve that issue in PC by having something called Titanic Hydra, which basically gave you an AoE basic attack. But in Wild Rift, we have like this very small inbuilt AoE basic attack that isn't so good for clearing waves as the game progresses. And Shen just isn't very strong at clearing waves. And so that's his problem in the side lane. He can't push very easily and can't even hold waves very easily. So that's why I think that Shen has a little bit of a problem in terms of his role in the meta right now, because just, yeah, his cross map's good hells, but it's very difficult to actually like hold waves and push waves when you're kind of like trying to split push a little bit with Shen. Anyway, that's just my opinion, you know, just my opinion on Shen. I'm flaming Shen.
Yeah. And I want to pick back up on the conversation we had about the new patch, because I personally really love this patch because it really highlights the mechanically skilled players, right? Because it's buffing the AD carries, which is harder to play than the mages like Orianna and Ziggs. And with the new items, Divine Sunder and Hullbreaker, these are bruiser items, right? These are not tank items, and tanks are kind of falling off a bit in this patch. And as we get into the picks and bans, I really want to talk about that because the tank meta, I don't really like it, right? Because it's kind of easy to play tanks. You just play a tank and you tank. That's it. But when you play these bruisers, it's high skilled. And that's why I said it's really going to be benefiting both the teams that are matching up against each other, because they really have the mechanically skilled players, Xcounter.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there is a lot of I would say stress put on individual performance, especially with some of the new items and some of the new ways that you can play the game. And so I think that's especially much more important on 3.1. I think it's one of some of the changes that they made specifically. They tried to make it so that individual performance has more of an impact, and laning phase has more of an impact, and XP recoup if you're falling behind is harder to achieve. So it's there's a lot of ways for you to kind of express yourself as an individually skilled player on this patch, and I think that is something that does play into the benefit of pro teams as well. It is a Jax, a Camille, a Lulu ban so far. No surprises with the Camille. It looks like Leon is actually playing in this.
No, he's not actually. It's a mistake.
Oh, it's a mistake. Okay, all right. I just didn't quite see the background conversation, but I thought Leon might have been playing, and I was about to get really hyped because we haven't seen Leon play competitively since I think last year. But nonetheless, Akali gets banned away from Vegas. Shen does get banned here, so people are banning Shen. I wonder whether Karma drops into a ban, because actually, obviously, now that there are more champions that need to be banned, it does open up what champions can be picked, the ones that were previously considered strong, especially.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly find it even more interesting that RIX decided to ban out the Akali. You can clearly see this is a target ban against Vegas, right? We saw him play it against, I don't remember which team it was, but he just absolutely, it was Team Dark. He just absolutely steamrolled them 2 games in a row with Akali, right? His team wasn't doing that well, but it was the Akali, and there it is, the Karma first pick. I talked about it. I'm not quite sure why it didn't get banned, but Karma just gets first pick, because I just feel she's incredibly strong, Xcounter.
Karma is, I do think, super strong. Flexible as well. You can play her mid. You can technically play her jungle. You can play her in the support role and even in the AD carry role if you have to as well. So it's another one of those really flexible picks. Gragas and Renekton come through here. Gragas, I think most of us would agree, is a super high tier pick across multiple roles right now in Wild Rift. There's the Fiora, as we mentioned. Fiora with Divine Sunderer. It's a very good pick for random. Hullbreaker as well has been a nice addition to Fiora's kit. So you're just seeing lots of strong power picks, and Graves comes out as well. Now, I think that this could be Fiora jungle, Graves, Baron lane for random, but of course there is still that flexibility between these two.
I definitely think that's the case. Graves does pretty well into Renekton as well, although Renekton can also be put in the mid lane. Another important thing to mention, by the way, there is a few champions that are banned, which is Master Yi, Yuumi, and Zed. And this is due to some bugs, with the champions, so they have just been disabled. So in case you were thinking, how the hell did Master Yi not get picked because he seems incredibly powerful, or Zed or Yuumi? That is why. And we see a Senna X-Counter. We haven't seen Senna for a long time.
Yeah, there is a lot of people that are kind of believing that Senna with Divine Sunderer and Grasp is very, very strong right now. And I think that's because her first ability is technically an on-hit effect proc, so you can get the healing from Divine Sunderer, you can get the percentage health-based damage with it as well. So basically, it's a free Divine Sunderer proc every time you land it on a champion, because it automatically... Like Iceborne Gauntlet, it just gives you that Sheen proc just by casting the ability and landing it on someone. So it's just a really, really nice addition to Senna's kit overall. And I think that's a really, really cool pickup to see Senna floating back into the meta. Now, that does open up whether we see Senna in the support role with Gragas as the farming champion, because, of course, fasting Senna with Gragas is a pretty common combo that we've seen a lot of teams play.
Yeah, I was exactly going to say that, right? Or Senna Galio, that is another very interesting combination. Varus ban indeed, as you mentioned, right? Team Queso doesn't want to see Doom on the Varus, so they just ban it out. They know how strong it is. Also against the Senna, because Senna does really well against those, champions that don't have a lot of range. And obviously Varus can just outrange Senna and destroy her in the lane. So Diana ban, a lot of these bans make a lot of sense still. The Ziggs ban, the Varus ban, the Diana. It's kind of the same, but the picks have become different, right? We see a lot of priority on the Graves, obviously the Karma, which is a new champion, and then a Senna as well. And I really like this X-Counter. It really opens up a whole new playstyle.
Yeah, I think, especially given how this comp might round out, we're looking at a very, very kind of strong, but then, okay, that's very interesting to me. They lock in the Vayne, which is obviously a Joey Skaggs pick, but it doesn't really feel like it works very well with Vayne. I was potentially expecting Joey to play the Senna, and then you were going to give maybe like Methanor or like Gragas or even Galio, as you said, that Galio is still open. But now we have now we have a Vayne Senna lane, which is very interesting. I think Doom would be more likely to pick something like Caitlyn or Tristana even. Maybe Morgana gets locked in here.
Mid lane Morgana, Jhin?
Well,
no, but like Jhin would be a good picker.
Would he?
If someone is gonna pick Jhin, this would be the draft because it's such a good combo with Karma. You have so much range to be playing against that Vayne. And interestingly, Jhin actually contests Vayne in the late game now with the new changes. So this would be the game. I don't think it's gonna happen, but a dreamer is always a dreamer.
If we get an AD carry, it'll be Jinx or Caitlyn, I think. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Jinx, okay.
It's just because like I was thinking that Doom likes his more traditional lady carries in this sense. Caitlyn and Morgana is like a really standard lane. Like we see a lot of Caitlyn Morgana lanes put together because you just have like infinite push potential.
It's really good.
And then I was just thinking,
rooting potential.
Yeah, and I was just thinking actually, if you want to match Vayne in the late game, it's probably better to try and play Jinx because you have a bit more matching power in the late game. But we have a Jace, which we haven't seen a huge amount of recently, which does mean that we are going to be looking at either a Gragas or a Jace jungle. I'm not sure which one I'm expecting Andre to play here.
And you know what? Yeah, actually, true. Yeah, actually, I was just gonna say something, but that's right. Like we can see them all. We could even see our Renekton jungle, like some crazy stuff like that. Like the beauty of Team Queso's composition right now is they can choose where to put their champions, right? Like if you look at RIX's composition, it's quite obvious where everyone is going, right? Like we have the Karma. Actually, it's not though. Karma could be going in the mid lane, although I would expect her to go support. And then the Graves in the Baron lane and then the Fiora in the jungle. That's what you would really expect from the composition of RIX, right? So as Team Queso, you can kind of choose like, okay, we want to put Jace against this, Renekton against this, and then Gragas here. So I feel Team Queso may have somewhat of an advantage in the draft, although the Vayne pick I feel was a bit too early because now they're playing Vayne against the Jinx and the Morgana and the Karma, which, you know, are champions that can deal with the Vayne pretty well.
It's pretty hard to play Vayne into this comp. I think you've got a lot of things you've got to dodge. I think the I liked what Team Queso did initially. I think they had a really good solid first three picks, which was the Senna, the Gragas, and the Renekton. I think they made a lot of sense. You have strong mid-game presence. You've got really great control around objectives, but then you just whack in the Vayne. It just didn't make a huge amount of sense to me, other than maybe having a good late-game insurance policy. But for RIX, they've got, I think, incredible teamfight power. Like Jinx, Karma, and Morgana together. Like Karma Morgana combo is insane in its own right. Like Karma ultimate plus Morgana ultimate is really, really good.
Oh, it's Snitch on the Graves actually. It's SC7 on the Morgana, and I see Stuart behind the scenes. He predicted it. He nearly pinpointed the composition. So it's random on the Fiora. It's SC7 on the Morgana, and then it's Snitch on the Graves. Snitch on Graves. What do you think?
We've seen it. Have we seen Snitch on Graves before?
I've seen it on his stream. I've only seen it on his stream.
I've seen Snitch playing it on stream, I think. And I think it's one of those matchups that it's Acolyte Vayne top. It's legit Acolyte. Okay, right. I mean, I mean, we got completely debated. I was just expecting Joey to have locked in the Vayne. I'm not entirely sure about the Vayne top into the Fiora. It's a bit of a difficult matchup if you don't time your condemn right, and Fiora just, you know, manages to get away with a free poke on you. But nonetheless, we'll see how that one plays out. That's an interesting matchup for for Random to play into. Joey is, of course, then playing Fasting Senna with Methanaut playing the Gragas, which is pretty cool.
By the way, Alexander, an interesting thing that I just remembered. I was watching Snitch's stream the other day, and I actually remember him asking how to combo Graves' abilities. So to me, it feels like he's a bit newer to Graves, and it feels like a bold move to pick him in a competitive game already, or it may even be a very confident move. Like Snitch is so confident in his skills that even though he probably just learned Graves to properly play Graves, he's already picking it in a competitive game. And I like the matchup, however. Like Graves does pretty well into Renekton because he does a lot of upfront damage, and Renekton wants to be in your face. So Graves is one of those champions that can definitely match the early game power of Renekton and outclasses him in the late game.
I think the point about Renekton is never really about your late game, right? Though with Renekton, you're like, I need someone that's going to make us relevant around neutral objectives in the mid game. So I need someone that is going to be like stood at the first dragon, or the first Rift Herald, and is going to be relevant to make us, be capable of team fighting, which I think works really well in this particular instance, especially because you're running with a Vayne who's going to be turbo useless, especially in the Baron lane for quite some time. So you're really looking to rely on Renekton to be that driving force behind any kind of play that you make around the Infernal Dragon, for instance. And whereas, the bottom side of the map for RIX is a little bit more scaling. So you have like a bit more, oh my gosh, look at the percentages on the wins. It's 82% RIX with only 18% Queso. Where is our Queso fans at, guys? Where are the Queso supporters?
And another interesting thing is Doom is actually winning his lane pretty hard. Even though there's no kills, Doom is actually ahead by like 500 gold over Metanaut, and Joey is not even ahead of Clue. So somehow, some way, Doom has already been pretty much dominating his lane during the first 3 minutes into the game. Doom and Clue with the Karma and the Jinx. And what I really like about that duo, by the way, is Karma provides the early game power with the shielding and everything like that. She's also strong in the late game, by the way. But like she kind of allows Jinx to get a free lane in the early game. She's not going to get harassed by the Senna, which normally can happen. But she won't get harassed because, they're already switching the lanes. We've seen this tactic happen a lot as well. Both teams are switching lanes to apply a lot of pressure in the mid lane. And this is where I feel Snitch may be stronger than Vegas on the Renekton. But we're going to have to see how both teams are going to be playing around the objective.
Yeah, and I think like RIX do this a lot, and a lot of teams kind of respond in kind because they essentially like to free up their solo laners to have a bit more presence in the side lane, but also it means that you get a bit of freedom about where you're going to put your resources on that first objective. Like for this, let's say you actually wanted to prioritize the Rift Herald, you had your AD carry sat in the Baron, the Dragon lane still, you would have to like rotate them all the way across the map. So in this particular instance, RIX are like, well, we can make a play for either the Infernal Drake or we can make a play for the Rift Herald, and we can very easily rotate Doom and Clue to whichever situation that we need them to be in without them having to traverse the entire breadth of the map, which is why a lot of teams do this, and obviously why you've seen Team Queso respond in kind.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that I want to mention is the vision game. And as Andres may get caught in the vision game, if we look at around the Rift Herald and around the Dragon, both teams have a lot of wards. And I want to see some sweepers because this feels like kind of a mistake for both teams, I would say. Because even though they have great vision, like both of them have great vision, they need to be sweeping away that vision X-Counter. There's way too many wards across the map right now.
Agree. I think there's a lot of vision for both teams. Obviously, that means that both teams are kind of on an even status, but I would say that Team Queso have a lot more breadth of vision here, especially across both the Rift Herald and the Infernal Drake, especially when they're going to be watching Doom and SE7 rotate up around the backside of the Dragon Pit, whereas I think, unfortunately, RIX have been a little less specific. Oh, we do have an engage here coming through. We're going to try and catch on to Methanol. That is a wasted ultimate from Clue now. And that is something that...
And from Doom.
And from SE7. So those are 3 ultimates that are now gone. And now RIX are saying, well, we've got to use this opportunity to potentially go for the Dragon. A little bit of a risky maneuver. I think without your ultimates, you were in a bit of a rough spot. I think they know that from Team Queso as we see a dive in and a steal from Andre. And I think RIX kind of have to leave it at that. Snitch has already taken very low. That's 1 reset for Doom. He's already starting off now. He gets a second one. That is a huge win. It was almost doomed for RIX, but they managed to bring it back, and they might be able to get the Rift Herald for free here.
Yeah, they managed to bring it back indeed. And I want to highlight how good Random played it out. He pushed out his lane way faster than Acolyte, which of course Vayne is not good at. She cannot push out waves very fast. Random rotated, which was able to generate 2 kills for free for RIX. Even though they lost the Dragon, because of Random's rotation, he turned the Doom situation into a win. And a Rift Herald right there. So massive props to them. And as we look into this replay, we can see the Vayne coming up way too late, right? It was a 5 versus 4, and Vayne was just essentially useless. Like, Acolyte could have even stayed in his lane better just to farm up, push out the wave, because he just didn't make it in time. So very, very well played by RIX Gaming. And we know Andres, right? Like, we know this guy. He steals away dragons like any day of the week. He just did it again and secured an Infernal Dragon for his team. It's gone.
I mean, Andre is one of the best junglers in Europe for a reason, right, Hells? Yep. He's known as pretty much being the complete package in terms of jungle capabilities. He can play almost any champion. He's got the carry potential, but one of the very unspoken kind of skills of jungling is your ability to land smites consistently. And I think Andre is one of the best. I would love to see over the course of European Wild Rift history, who is the highest sort of stealing smiter, like which jungler has stolen the most objectives. I reckon Andre would definitely be up there.
I mean, in Europe, definitely Andre.
I agree. I think he's really, really good. This is a great push, though. Great siege from RIX to be able to pick up that first mid lane tower. That's a really nice tower to get as your first objective of the game now, House, because it opens up entrances into the blue and red side jungle, which makes putting deep vision around objectives a little easier and a little less risky for RIX.
Yeah, definitely. Even though Team Queso stole away the dragon, RIX is just getting away with a massive advantage right here. It's a gold advantage and a turret advantage. As Random is trying to trade as Acolyte, it seems a bit hard right here.
I think he's struggling now. I think especially post level 5, Fiora can't consistently land her vitals with her grand challenge on Vayne, and Vayne can use the invisibility to her advantage. And you can already start to see Acolyte feeling pretty comfortable in this matchup versus Random now, maybe thinking that this is his pocket pick against Fiora's in the top side of the map. Beautiful stun from SE7 though, and that will force them away from this tower. Lovely route. SE7 playing this jungle Morgana nicely, having picked up the Luden's Echo already.
Yeah, definitely. And Snitch, as you can see, is actually doing pretty well on the Graves. He's doing surprisingly well. He's winning the... Well, he has more gold than a Renekton. We would have expected Renekton to win the early game because Renekton is an incredibly strong early game champion. And from now on out, Graves is going to start to outskill the Renekton. It's going to start to provide a lot more value to the team. And I feel RIX is in a very good position, especially with Doom sitting on 6.5k gold as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed that RIX do more so than any other team in this competition is that they funnel gold, especially from towers, really nicely. And obviously on 3.1, there was a change where local tower gold has become more valuable to the people that are actually hitting it. One of the things that I think that you see quite frequently from RIX is that they'll allow Doom to rotate with the team, and they'll give him as much tower gold as they physically can. And I think that's something that you're seeing here, because it's accelerated his gold nicely, as has it accelerated Snitch's. And you can see the AD carry now working towards their second full item. Doom's in a really, really good spot.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, Joey Skaggs is sitting at 4.8k gold, going for the Edge of Night, which is not really a late game scaling item. He's going to struggle in fights right now because the Edge of Night is not going to provide him enough early game power to win against Doom, who is nearly 3,000 gold ahead of him. So, bit of a questionable pickup, I would say. I mean, I would love to hear the thoughts behind that because, of course, the Edge of Night shield is good against the Morgana. We're going to be seeing nearly an engage, but Doom with the Karma and with a flash just very easily disengages.
Yeah, but they're going to set up this dragon. They're going to force the issue with RIX, and unfortunately SE7 was a little far behind when it came to getting involved in this fight. You can see the Team Queso happy to keep going. This is a 4 versus 5 for the time being. Brilliant Karma ultimate, absolutely huge from Clue there, and it sets up the kill on Methanaut. Doom has now found a first reset. It's a second kill. He's going for a third. He's going for it. He's going for it. It's a triple kill. Doom's going for his quadra. Can he find a penta here? That's going to be a quadra that comes with a pentakill. Another pentakill. Back to back. Jinx pentakills for Doom. Absolutely monstrous.
He did it again. He did it again. He picked the Jinx again, and his next game on Jinx, he got a pentakill already. 2 Jinx games and 2 pentakills. I mean, what can this man not do? He's sitting on 9,500 gold. And as we look into this replay, a brilliant Karma ultimate, which pretty much set them up for success. Team Queso was actually winning this fight, but then here, easy Karma ultimate, and there it is. Doom gets 1 kill, and we know it's over when Jinx gets 1 kill. He just uses his rockets, ults Vegas, and runs with the movement speed and just destroys all of them. I could already see the pentakill from the very beginning because I'm a Jinx player myself, and with the last rocket,
Acolyte was like, Acolyte was, you're coming down with me. He was like, no, you're coming down with me. There's no way you're escaping, Andre. Oh, wow. That shows you the power of Jinx in the current meta as well. And I think, look, as you know, if there was going to be an AD carry that is more likely to pick up pentakills than any other, it's Jinx because of that reset potential. Reset champions in general do well at getting pentakills. There's a reason that people like Katarinas, the Master Yi's, the Dariuses of the world, they're the ones that pick up the pentakills more often because they have those reset mechanics. But right now, what's so amazing about Jinx is that she used to be considered only viable with Lulu, and in competitive, that was almost impossible to make work. But now with the Stormrazor changes, like, you don't even need to play Jinx with Lulu to make her a super viable champion. And you can see Doom obviously absolutely excelling on this AD carry right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I just find it interesting that Stormrazor is working so well on the Jinx, and as I'm talking, RIX is gonna be collapsing on Team Queso right here.
Yeah, a little bit of a missed ultimate from Clue there. He's going to try and buy some time for Random to get out, but he can't for the time being. That will be a stasis with Vejos, but right now Doom on the back line doing his thing. He's just so far ahead. It's a double kill. Is it going to be a triple? He doesn't quite manage to get the second penta here, but it'll definitely be the triple as he picks up Acolyte. Doom is just too far ahead now, and with this Rift Herald, they're going to push down an inhibitor tower.
Yeah, this seems like it's over. The Vayne is never going to be outscaling this Jinx anymore, especially Doom on the Jinx. I mean, look at this guy. He's going to be killing Andres here as well. No one can escape.
Oh, Doom almost goes down there, but will drop to Snitch right at the end. They can't end the game. It's a little too early for that. But RIX are 12 minutes into the game with 13,000 gold in the lead. The second Rift Herald, or sorry, the Baron rather, is spawning at this point. Let's take a look back at that though again, Hells.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope from this game that Team Queso learned that they needed an exhaust. Because, yeah, as we saw during this team fight, yet again, you know, everything is happening on the right side. But if you look at Doom, he gets one kill on Metanaut and the fight is already over, right? Like, he gets the movement speed, he gets the rockets, he gets the attack speed for the minigun. It's already over. You're just not going to win the fight anymore. But you need that exhaust, especially against these types of champions like the Jinx, right? Snitch on the Graves has an exhaust to be dealing with a potential threat like the Vayne. So RIX is even ready for Team Queso's late game. But Team Queso isn't ready for RIX's late game. And when Doom gets even more items, and as we can see, he's sitting on 3 items and he got a static shift, which is a really strong snowballing item, by the way, because it deals even more damage with the lightning damage. You just can't do anything about Doom anymore. And I would say this game is over. Like, you just cannot deal with the Jinx anymore.
Yeah, I think you're completely right, Hells. I think the game is probably sunk at this point for Team Queso. Again, questions around why the Vayne top was picked in this situation. Doesn't feel like it was offering a huge amount. It's almost the lowest gold on the team, even lower than Methanol right now. And as you mentioned, doesn't feel like the Senna was maybe the correct pick, even though I think, you know, on paper it's working quite well right now. But in general, RIX just managed to play those early team fights around the objectives better, and unfortunately Team Queso were not able to make use of their Renekton mid the way they would have liked. It's a complete cleanup in the base right now, as you can see. Almost not worth casting it at this point because RIX are essentially toying with their food. It will be the first game of the series going the way of RIX, and they looked very confident doing it.
Nah, that was very easy. It just felt like RIX was playing against one of the worser teams. It's incredible that they beat out a powerhouse like Team Queso like it's nothing, and doing it in style as well, right? With a pentakill. Just wow, man! I knew it. RIX Gaming in the new patch are gonna be an incredible team, Excalibur.
I think you're 100% right. I think we kind of talked about it last week as well. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from this game then, Hells. It all started around that Infernal Drake, which was a really nice steal from Andre, but it kind of went a little downhill because this is where Doom got his start, right?
Yeah, definitely. And this is honestly where Random made the very good outplay, where he out-rotated Acolyte. But here we look at the better play, which is the Karma ultimate from Clue. Because we are all talking about the pentakill from Doom, but we should also talk about the start of it, right? Because we know when Jinx gets a kill, she goes ham. But this, like, the setup was just as good and maybe even better than the pentakill itself from Clue right there. Getting that 4-man Karma ultimate, setting all of the enemies close to each other, so the rockets do massive AoE damage, and then here we can see it, the beautiful pentakill, and especially finishing it up with style, with the last rocket, boom, pentakill. And here yet again, right, like Clue sitting in the background doing a lot with the Karma, but then it's Doom that's really doing all the damage right there, right? It only takes 1 kill on the Jinx, and you will just carry it all.
And I think with Doom at that point, once you've got that far ahead on Jinx, it's so difficult to play against her because she's just able to find the weak spot in your team. And once a reset comes through, that reset's worth like a ridiculous amount of gold in terms of the stats that it provides the Jinx in the team fight moment. So all Doom needed to do was find the weak link, which in my opinion was likely going to be something like Acolyte or Joey because they're squishy. Once that Infinity Edge was finished, just find that weak link, get the reset, and suddenly take over the whole fight. So it was really, really easy enough for Doom to kind of take over. And we could take a look at those all-important stats. Doom at 9, 1, and 4. I think everybody on Team Queso had a really good performance though. You can see 1, 0, 13, almost 100% kill participation for both Doom, Clue, and SE7, all at almost 100% kill participation in this game, which is absolutely insane. Clue also had some really big ultimates, like you said. 21k damage coming out from Doom on the Jinx. Wow. He absolutely took over on this pick, Hells.
it's crazy how Stormrazor can just completely change the game for Jinx, because we saw Doom utilize the Stormrazor very effectively as well, right? Like following up CC with the Stormrazor slow as well, and then with the burst damage, it worked out like wonders for Doom. And like Alexandro, do you really think Jinx is gonna be banned out against RIX? Because I feel like it may even become a potential ban against RIX after seeing this.
I think the problem with Jinx is that it's a pick that should technically be easy to like shut down. I think a lot of teams would say, oh, we don't know if Jinx is the problem, but rather the mistakes that we made that allowed Jinx to do that. So probably Team K might look back and view this as actually it was an issue on our end rather than an issue with the Jinx specifically. But like you said, there's lots of things that you can kind of adjust heading into the next draft. But what do you think? Like the play of the game, I think it's got to be the Penta, right? There's no way it's not the Penta, Hales, right?
It's of course the Penta. And yet again, I really want to talk about the initiation of this first, like the before Penta, right? Let's take a look at Clue. Like here, Team Queso was winning, but then boom, it changes the game. This is when he just put all of them together with the Karma ultimate. Doom separated them with his third ability, rooted the Gragas, got the kill, and then the rest is history. Uses the rockets of Jinx and just runs them down through the turret. And then this is what I love the most, the last finishing blow, boom, Penta kill. What an amazing performance. So amazingly played by RIX Gaming, just perfectly playing the composition around the Jinx and allowing the Jinx to just do that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how the setup was so good. And I think you're right highlighting Clue there. Clue basically gave the avenue for success for Doom. Like Clue basically said, here is your Penta, feel free to take it. And I think it was that really big setup on the ultimate that kind of gave it away. Think though, we're going to take a brief break, and when we are back, we should be going into the second game of this series. So we'll see you very soon.
Daddy.
Welcome back, everybody, to the WREC Last Chance Qualifier. I'm Scoundrel, joined by Hells, and we just saw RIX dismantle Team Queso in a very short game where a pentakill featured again for Doom on the Jinx. Lots of things to break down here, Hells, but realistically, Queso need almost a complete reset heading into this next game, right?
Yeah, they definitely need a complete reset. Like, if you head into the next game just like this, just got steamrolled again. Like, they had absolutely no chance to win this game realistically. They just got completely outclassed everywhere. And as you said, they just need a complete reset, a complete different approach to the draft, and a complete different approach to the game. I still feel they may take a game or even the series, but indeed, a complete reset.
They just need to think about how they're going to approach it now. I think at this point, Hells, you're completely right. I think, you know, someone else that was standing in the sidelines, waiting and looking at that game was Stu. So let's hear what he had to say heading into this second game.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. Yeah, I just wanted to get to a few key points, which is different to the ones that you see on screen, unfortunately. But we're going to be talking quickly about the Karma priority that we saw in the first game. Karma priority, first pick. It came up absolutely huge and set up Doom perfectly for that pentakill. I think Karma in general is a great support, really good at shielding, really good zoning control as well. It was kind of the same with SE7. And then you have this is kind of the perfect meta for RIX as well. You've got Doom back on his AD carries, back on the hyper carries. You've got Clue back on the enchanters. Snitch and Random can play their solo carries as well. So it's really awesome to see RIX play this dominant meta. And as Helsic Scoundrel mentioned, Team Queso have to go back to the drawing board to try and adapt to game number 2. And the last point is just about rotations around the map. RIX just grouped up together around the map, just allowing Doom to kind of carry across the map and allow him to keep auto-attacking the towers, get that zoning control as well from SE7 and from the Karma on the Clue, and just overall a really solid performance by RIX. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go for the same sort of comp going into game number 2. So that's it for now. Back to Hells and Scoundrel to get us back into game number 2.
Thank you so much, guys. Yes, we are heading into game number 2 here on the WREC Last Chance Qualifier. And I think there's a lot to be said about the draft phase. I think, you know, especially that Vayne top didn't really make too much sense to me. I know it was maybe a pocket pick versus the Fiora. We saw there was even a chance where, you know, he potentially almost solo killed Random, but it didn't have much impact for the team, and the team comp was all over the place for Team Queso. It didn't really have a clear identity about what it wanted to achieve. So that's where we need to kind of go back, and I almost think we should go back to what was good, like Acolyte on these big beefy bruisers. Give him the Renekton's, give him the Darius's, and see if he can just hold his own versus Random and have an impact in the team fight. They're on blue side this time round, Hells, so they'll have a bit more choice in that first pick potential, and we'll have to see how much of an impact that's going to make. What else do you think really stood out? Do you think that Jinx needs to be a ban, for instance?
I think Karma needs to be a ban. I honestly don't think Jinx was necessarily the problem, even though Doom played an incredible Jinx. I feel Karma was a bigger problem because, like, Karma's ultimate, Karma's first ability slows, Karma's roots, and Karma's shielding as well. She just has it all to provide for Jinx. So I think not the Jinx, I think it's more about the Karma. But then the problem is you're going to be leaving open the Lulu, right? We know that Yuumi is banned. And talking about banned champions, the Zed. Like, this is kind of an annoying ban for someone like Vegos because we saw how good he is on the Zed. And then RIX just bans out the Akali as well, right? Like, these are his 2 pocket pick assassins where he can pretty much 1v9 the game, but they're both banned out, like the global ban, and then RIX is just going to be banning out Akali again, of course. So it kind of hurts Vegos because it puts him in a position where he has to play a different champion, where it's going to be a champion that doesn't have as much hard carry potential, or a bruiser like the Renekton, or even the Garen in the mid lane. He just cannot do what he does on the Zed and the Akali on these champions, Excounter.
Yeah, and I think Vejos clearly showed his skill on those assassins, right? Like you said. So it feels like taking him away from something that maybe doesn't have as much individual impact. Like Renekton is good, but you feel like the individual impact of that champion is sometimes a little hard to feel. You're there to set your team up for success a lot of the time on Renekton. Whereas on the Akali, we could see the big solo plays that he was making, and the Zed was also obviously one of those picks that was really good for him. It's a bit sad that it's out of the picture for him now today. That might have actually hampered Team Queso more than we maybe realized, because apart from Zed and Akali, there aren't many like really solid competitive assassins that you can play in the mid lane. Like Katarina is not competitively viable because too many teams know how to shut her down. And I think, playing something like Yasuo isn't like a true assassin and can be a little risky depending on the comp that you're playing. So we'll have to see. Set is the ban this time around though. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm expecting RIX to ban out Karma and Akali here. They actually ban out the Lulu instead. So that was also a champion that we were talking about, right? Like Lulu is one of those champions that really enables ADCs like the Vayne and like the Jinx. The reason that RIX is banning out the Lulu is because of the possibility of Team Queso picking Lulu Vayne. We know how good Joey is on the Vayne, right? And combining it with a Lulu is incredible. And when you have that first pick priority, you will get that Lulu guaranteed, right? But now, Team Queso has the option to not ban... Yeah, there it is. They don't ban out the Karma. Because now RIX either has to choose on banning away the Akali or the Karma. Are they going to be giving Karma away to Team Queso? I don't think so. But then they're leaving open the Akali, which we saw Vegas... Yeah, indeed. They don't leave the Karma open, but Galio is open, right? Like, that's one of those champions that can deal with the Akali. Yet again, just an incredibly smart draft from RIX, but Camille pick.
Camille, I think that's interesting because Acolyte Acolyte and Andre are both big Camille aficionados. Like, they love Camille.
Yeah.
The immediate response from RIX is the Fiora. She's super strong on the current patch. I mean, Fiora's always been super strong, continues to be super strong.
And Galio.
And Galio's open. Shen is also open, by the way. That was banned on the previous games. So whether, Shen is going to feature, this is maybe a game where we potentially see that. I do think that Shen doesn't have many great matchups, so you've always got to be a little bit worried about picking it. And I think RIX are going to go for what has worked. They are going to go for the Graves and the Fiora, which leaves them open and flexible about where they want to put those champions.
Yeah, and leaving open a Galio when a Camille is already picked is always a dangerous thing. Even though you have the Fiora, and even though there are some champions that can somewhat deal with it, I would say it's a bit dangerous. And a Thresh pick, actually, Xcondo. Wow, that's amazing. I love to see Thresh, but interestingly, no Galio. I find it very interesting, but a Thresh, I mean... yeah, what do we have to say about a Thresh?
I think it's a really high-tier pick in the support role right now. I think it's something that's underused by a lot of pro teams. I think it's got really, really strong capabilities in both protecting individual carries. Like Thresh Varus is one of the most iconic duo lanes in League of Legends across the ecosystem, not just in Wild Rift, but also in PC. Basically makes up for Varus's insanely bad mobility by just having the Lantern there. So I think like Thresh Varus is super strong. It's also something that was banned in the previous pick and ban phase. And so now Joey's going to be on something that he knows that he can have immediate impact in and knows that he can play from range as well. The response from Clue, though, is Rakan, which is also considered by a lot of support players to be another S+ tier pick right now.
Yeah, definitely. Rakan is just always a solid pick. Although I feel it's a bit dangerous to be picking the Rakan into this composition of Team Queso. Even though Rakan is incredibly powerful, he may struggle against a Varus and a Thresh, because Thresh can cancel out his dashes. Varus can ult him, of course, and, Rakan may just get one-shotted like that, because the common approach is to go for full AP Rakan, which leaves him a bit vulnerable for burst damage, and Team Queso has that burst damage right now. So, yeah, there we see it. The Akali ban, right? Like, RIX Gaming only gave Team Queso one chance to pick the Akali. Team Queso didn't take that opportunity, so now it's banned out, which makes a lot of sense. RIX seems to just be on a comfortable draft right now. Like sure, Team Queso has the Camille, sure they have some power picks. As long as they don't get that Akali and the Lulu potential, then it should be all good for RIX. I believe that's what they're thinking right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think also like the Akali is something that is difficult to first pick or first rotate because there are quite a lot of bad matchups. And I think, like, for instance, like SC7 could play Lee, or you could see Snitch randomly pull out the TF, which are all both like really strong picks against the Akali, even though, TF's questionable about how good he is in competitive right now, and Lee can also be, a little questionable just depending on who's playing him. There are picks that can deal with Akali, so Akali usually serve better as kind of like a final pick. And I love this from Snitch because one of the other go-tos for Vejos is the Diana, and that is now taken away from Vejos should he want it. And he can't get his hands on it, so that's going to be Snitch playing the Diana in the mid lane.
And you would think this would be a free Galio pick, and now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of understand why Galio would potentially be a problem for Team Queso, because Vegas is, I would say, their best player. And putting him on a Galio, Oh, Olaf was actually. We didn't even talk about Olaf, Excalibur.
Yeah, I know it's been banned pretty consistently. And the thing is, like, no one ever really considers Olaf to be like ridiculously powerful in his own right. But there are a few junglers in Europe that really do make him play well. Two of the ones that come to mind are Vex and Andre. And Andre obviously is a fantastic jungler, but with Olaf, like, he can have a lot of individual impact. So very cool to see Olaf get picked up here, because it wasn't banned this game, and it has usually been banned, with Renekton coming through as well. Very AD heavy team here from Team Queso. Like, no AP threats whatsoever. Now, that's not necessarily bad, but Crystalline Reflector is an item for Snitch on the Diana.
Yeah.
Grit passive on Graves naturally builds up, and obviously with the addition of Death Dance, which is really good for the likes of Fiora and Graves. This looks like prime Death Dance game for a lot of the RIX roster, and Xayah as well, to give yourself the extra protection versus Olaf and teamfights. I really like this. I think it's obviously the pairing with Rakan. It's a really good draft from RIX, and actually I think Team Queso, they need to snowball this with the Olaf, otherwise they're staring down Death Dances. And I think at that point you're going to really struggle to win teamfights.
You really took the words out of my mouth. I was basically exactly going to say that, right? The point about the Death Stance. I only had one more thing to add, which is the Graves. Graves does incredibly well into compositions like these, especially the Olaf, because Graves has that massive upfront damage, right? And with the Black Cleaver as well, which I would assume is a no-brainer item right here, because you're up against a lot of bruisers and tanks. Graves with a Black Cleaver right here, just constantly dashing out basic attacks, first ability, ultimate, boom, 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 stacking up the armor. How are you going to deal with the Graves of RIX right now?
Well, that's the problem. I don't know. I don't know if you will. I think there are too many good picks on RIX. I think Diana is really nice into a very heavy melee comp as well. Like, you're going to be able to get massive ultimates off. I think this is a really, really good draft from RIX in general. And I think if they itemize correctly, you're staring at a win from draft and win from shopkeeper type of scenario for RIX, which could definitely be the case. However, keep your eyes on Andre. I think he'll be the catalyst. If Andre can get rolling on Olaf, he has a big true damage ability, which is Reckless Swing, and that scales with level. And so, like, if he gets far enough ahead in levels, he can kind of take over games with the true damage itself, right, Hells? And so he wouldn't need to worry too much about his physical damage output.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that Team Queso has as their advantage, right? Like the true damage. Even though they're full attack damage, as you mentioned, they do have that true damage from Olaf. And exactly as you mentioned, they would kind of have to snowball. And we see a ghost enchant coming through from Andres, which indicates a bit more to me that he does indeed want to snowball, because he just wants to use it in the early game, get those kills as fast as he can, and just snowball the game. Because indeed, if he snowballs with that true damage, it scales with level. So when he reaches level 7, he's going to have a massive power spike, especially if RIX is sitting at level 5 and level 6 champions. So that should be their plan right here, to be snowballing, because if they do reach that late game, I believe Snitch is going to be unkillable on that Graves.
Yeah, and I think what I really love again is the decision to put the Diana in the jungle. Even though I don't really rate Diana jungle to a massive extent, you can see that her clear speed is like significantly lower than a lot of her other counterparts. Oh, I think he's messed up the red buff. It looked like he messed up the red buff there because he's still on it. Oh no, he was doing the razor beaks beforehand. But the matchup into Renekton mid lane is awful for Diana. Like, it's a really bad matchup for Diana. So, you know, I think this is a decision as well to make it a much easier matchup for Snitch on the Graves, and it also means that SE7 can kind of just freely go about clearing the jungle. I also really like that he's gone for a full topside clear. He's hoping to not have to get involved in a fight with the Olaf and the Renekton early on, because they know that they'll lose that. So he's just trying to avoid any kind of sort of contest around the scuttle. I wouldn't be surprised to see him head straight back over to the blue side jungle and not actually contest this scuttle whatsoever.
Exactly. And I see that Andres wants to take the fight, right? Like, he is trying to look for those fights, but he doesn't see SE7 right now. And as you can see, SE7 saw Andres right there, so he's just going right back. He doesn't want to take that fight. RIX knows that they outskill. RIX knows that they win the late game. They just don't want to force those early game fights, because as we talked about during the draft, they don't have to. Why would they? Like, if they force those early game fights, and Andres was trying to look for a cheeky go right there, but yeah, if they force those early game fights, they may put themselves in a bad position, but they may go for this gank, Excalibur.
Oh, they are going to try and go for a Joey by himself, forced to flash away. That's a decent flash from Joey. He doesn't get himself caught, and obviously Methanaut now back in the lane to support. They won't be able to take too much from this bottom lane tower. There are too many champions around it, so the armor is too high to get much damage done. But nonetheless, a good flash burn early on from Joey, and he'll just about have that by the time that the objectives start to spawn.
Yeah, definitely. Team Queso did learn their lesson from the first game. Joey did pick up the exhaust this time instead of a heal, which is very much necessary. And interestingly, RIX actually has 2 exhausts, Excalibur. They took 2 of them. Even though Olaf denies the slow and kind of denies the damage reduction because of his true damage, RIX still opted to go for a double exhaust. I don't know what to think about that. I feel it's a bit of an overkill, but we can definitely see teams prioritizing. Ooh, we can definitely see teams prioritizing the exhaust in the current meta.
Clue, that was a bit risky. He's burnt his heel. Yeah, I think the exhaust works really nicely for a couple of reasons. I think it works really nicely for Camille and Renekton. And I think it does have impact on Olaf, like especially if you're just using it at the right time. Ooh, an attempted hook. Flash from SE7 could have been made him very vulnerable, but you can see that in general, Team Queso are playing with a little bit more gusto this time around. And Andre is starting to snowball in terms of levels. He's already a level up on his counterpart, and he's doing a lot of counter jungling here versus the Diana.
And that's exactly what he has to do. And they're going for the gank as well. They know what they have to do.
Got to be careful here. They haven't got the support of anybody else. You can see the random now behind the tower. They are waiting for their time. In goes Acolyte. They're a little bit away from the tower. Brilliant riposte. Brilliant riposte. And the rest of RIX is here. There is SE7 with the ultimate. Snitch is in the fight as well. The double exhaust coming out maybe clutch as Vejos goes down. The healing starts to pump out for the Fiora. And Snitch is in. End of the line for you, baby. End of the line for Team Queso. A disaster around the tower. And RIX absolutely clean up.
Very, very well played by RIX. Like they're random with a beautiful riposte, just completely denying Acolyte's ultimate there. And from that point out, the fight was already over because with no Camille ultimate, you cannot run them down with the Olaf. Because as you can see, the initiation was pretty good by Team Queso, right? They went for the turret, but then unfortunately, Acolyte went for an ultimate on random while he still had his riposte available. You cannot expect random to fill it. Like as you can see, he just dodged. He not only dodged away Camille's ultimate, he actually also dodged away one of the true damage abilities from Olaf. So they just missed out on so much damage and teamfight control that they just straight up lost the teamfight. And then Snitch comes through, stacking up the armor, dealing a lot of damage. The fight is already won for RIX Gaming right there. And then now it's going to be getting hard for Team Queso to make the comeback because RIX has a lot of gold. Somehow, some way, the gold is still the same. But as we said, this is a massive loss for Team Queso because they want to be snowballing this game, Excalibur.
Yes, and I think they really, failed to pull the trigger on that dive initially. They left it way too late. And by the time they got around to actually going for the dive, the rest of RIX had already responded. I think if they had literally just run at random under the tower and really committed, they could have very easily got away with that. But unfortunately now, not able to do so. And you can see Andre is being forced back from this Rift Herald as you see the rest of Team RIX coming up, and they're going to go for the engage. That's a great hook, though, on to Clue, and he's already going down here. Random taken low. It's going to be Andre that does eventually drop. The healing is there, but it'll be Acolyte that picks up the kill. And it's a 2-for-1 overall right now with Clue and Random dying for Andre. But in the meantime, you can see that Vejos is on the bottom side of the map, and he's going to take the first tower of the game for Team Queso.
And Excalibur, here we can see the potential of Team Queso's roster, and they may go for this kill, so I don't think there's going to be much happening right here because RIX shouldn't be going for this dive. Although look at that turret damage. That's the power of the Graves as well, just destroying the turret while there's not that much happening. But I want to mention, there we could briefly see the power of Team Queso's composition. They were in a 4 versus 5 situation and they still won. As you can see, this is a 4 versus 5 situation, even a 3 versus 5, by the way, because Varus is not even there yet, but they still won. The way that they won is because this time they did combo their ultimates properly, right? Like the Olaf went in with his true damage, they waited out the riposte, then Acolyte went in with his ultimate, and then also the Thresh ultimate. That is how you win these teamfights, and that's what Team Queso should have done earlier as on. If they had done that, they could have potentially snowballed this game out of control. So right here, Team Queso actually made somewhat of a comeback. They're ahead in gold. They took a bot lane turret. They're doing fine again, Excalibur.
Yeah, they definitely are. They managed to bring that gold back into the even stead, and you can see that right now the gold is where it needs to be. It's on Joey, it's on Vejos specifically, who's a really strong mid-game champion, and also the Divine Sunder already picked up. They're going for another dive on the top side of the map. Snitch is there as well. It's going to be Clue taken down very low. The exhaust coming in clutch against Vejos on the Renekton, and here comes SE7. He gets a great ultimate off, flashes over the wall onto Methanor, tries to take down his second target, and will a double kill for him. But in the meantime, Doom and Random, they're getting a flank from Vejos for the time being. They've already taken down that mid lane tier 1, and another exhaust comes through to stop that stun on the Renekton. You can kind of see the value of this exhaust versus this Renekton now, as it's having a lot of impact.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, we can see the values of the exhausts right now. And now I'm starting to understand why RIX Gaming picked 2 exhausts. Even though they're up against an Olaf, who an exhaust is really useless against, they just completely denied an engage like that. And as we look into this replay, Team Queso had a really good engage with the threats, right? Like they had a really, really good engage. But unfortunately, Olaf was tanking the turret, which made him take way too much damage. And Stitch was just able to survive. And then SC7 comes up, picks up the free kills, like it's 2 minions that he's killing out. I feel a bit bad for Team Queso, however, because they're really trying to force it out, and they're doing, I would still say, a good job trying to force it, because they know this is how they can win the game. But RIX is just picking up the free kills afterwards.
Somehow Andre manages to get away with being just out of sight and jumps straight onto Random here as he goes in, actually forces the grand challenge, which will deter Andre for the time being. Was maybe hoping to get a cheeky little pick to establish some vision control around that Infernal Dragon that will be spawning soon. It is still an even game, though. You know, we've only got about 2k difference between the two teams, which at this point is not a massive amount. And if you look at direct item spikes, there is, you know, essentially 1 item for everybody, like 1 completed item for everybody at this point in time. The Crystalline Reflector has now just been finished up. We mentioned that in Champion Select. Crystalline Reflector is going to be a big one in this game. And actually, I think that getting picked up now for SC7 is going to be really impactful around this next Dragon fight.
Yeah, Kando, like, honestly, I don't think Team Queso has a way to win this, because as we look into this itemization from RIX, everyone has armor boots. SC7 has the Crystalline Reflector. We know everyone is going to be building armor. We know that Graves gets a lot of armor passively. Like, how the hell are you going to be beating that out as Team Queso? I'm trying to think of a way besides the Olaf, but Team Queso is going to be having a really hard time going right through it. They're really going to be needing those armor-penetrating items.
Diana's gone Mercury treads. Why is
Diana Mercury?
Why is Diana gone Mercury? I mean, I suppose for Varus ult and Renekton stun could be a thing. They're going to see the engage come through, though. There is the ultimate coming in from Diana. It's already Joey that's picked up a clue in the back line for the time being, but low HP bars across the board. And here goes the rest of RIX. It is Clue that's died, but RIX have done a huge amount of damage to Team Queso. They cannot contend with the power of the Graves and the Zaya, which almost goes down to Andre waiting in the wings. But they can't contend with it for the time being. They'll pick up the Infernal and have cemented a great lead for themselves already.
Yeah, yet again, Team Queso winning the fight in the beginning, but after their ultimates ran out, it's just game over, because Doom on the Zaya, the champion, is incredibly good against those champions that Team Queso has. She can root all of them. She can run away. She gets movement speed. Her ultimate. That's the problem. Doom on the Zaya is practically going to be unkillable. Yet again, running the Stormbrazer as his first item. It seems to be his favorite item. I can pretty much say that right now. And he's 3-0, right? He's 3-0, 8.4k gold. It's just looking like a disaster from Team Queso, because even if they do well, and SC7 getting the Rift out, but even if they do well, they're gonna struggle really hard to kill out Doom on that Zaya Xcander.
Absolutely. Andre, a little careful here. We have the Blade of the Ruined King finished up for Random, so he's got Divine Sunder, a Blade of the Ruined King here on the Fiora for that sustain. Acolyte is desperately trying to take that tower, but you can see that Random is now completely taking over the side lane matchup versus Vejos and is starting to establish himself in the split push. I wonder if he's going to go for Hullbreaker or he's actually going to consider the Death Dance. You know, that's my question. He's actually taking away red buff right now too. Yeah, he's gone for Blade.
He went for the Blade of the Ruined King.
Yeah. You see Random going in onto Andre, who gets taken down super low. Grand challenge not there, so the healing isn't available. Might end up going down. SC7, he does have that Crystalline Reflector, and you can see how much of an impact they just had in preventing him from going down. SC7 escapes with a sliver of HP, and the rest of RIX clean up. Oh, Team Queso, absolutely disastrous. Acolyte looks like he can't even 1v1 Doom at this point in time. And I think Team Queso are bowing into the losers bracket at this point. RIX are in complete control.
Yeah, RIX is in complete control, just showing utter dominance in this game. And now pushing out the inhibitor turret in the bot lane, pushing out the mid lane, and Doom destroying Acolyte in the top lane. It's just a win everywhere. Team Queso cannot do anything at this point anymore. We've already approached the moment of the game where it's honestly a bit too late already. Team Queso just can't kill RIX anymore, Xcander.
I don't think so. I think there's not an easy target for you to take down. They're trying to chase down Random. Clue just use the heal. They flash and hook him. He'll pop the stasis for the time being, but I think he will eventually drop. But the problem for Team Queso is that what do you get out of that? You used a load of resources, but it's not like you can go and take Baron. It's not like you can take a Dragon. It's not like you can get an inhibitor tower. It was a flash and a kill, I think, for morale's sake, more than anything here, Hells.
Yeah, definitely a morale kill, honestly. And as we look into the builds of RIX Gaming, we see the Deadman split coming through from Rakan. But actually, we're going to be looking into the replay. We had a good engage from the Olaf, but then SC7 on the Diana, showing power, using his ultimate. Then we see an exhaust come through a little too late. Not sure why it didn't get used when she ulted. But then here, as you can see, Snitch on the Graves, just completely decimating the composition of Team Queso. But we have another fight.
We have another fight. Doom gets a really nice stun out onto Vejos, who's desperately trying to keep himself in the game. He gets taken down as Snitch loses half his HP from Joey, who's one of the least fed members on the entire Team Queso team, but is still chunking out people, which is why Varus is so ridiculously strong. But nonetheless, another unfortunate loss here for Vejos, who drops down and unfortunately gets taken out.
Yeah, and as you said, we're seeing the death stance from Random, but SC7 is fighting.
SC7 onto Andre right now, gets taken down low. The Ignite is ticking. Acolyte should be able to pick this one up, but Random keeps on chugging with that Grand Challenge.
Wow.
One more Vital. He gets it. Uses the riposte and gets the healing through it. Joey gets locked up. Random keeps going, and he gets a double kill. Beautiful play from Random on the Fiora.
And Excalibur, can you imagine? He doesn't even have a death dance yet. Can you imagine what's gonna happen when Random picks up the death dance, which he can pick up when he goes back?
He's not good. I mean, he might have it at the end of this, but I don't even think he's gonna need it. The inhibitor tower is going to do the work for them. Doom picks up the kill here. A killing spree for Snitch on the Graves. I don't think they're even going to get back to the shop at this point. 3 inhibitors down. This is end of the line for Team Queso. And honestly, RIX made it look darn easy here, Hells. It was a quick, clean 2-0 for RIX in the upper bracket.
They finished both games in 14 minutes. I mean, that's ridiculous to me. Like, you barely even finish games in 14 minutes in a ranked match, even if you're like a heavy favorite. And RIX just did it in a competitive match against one of the best teams in Europe. Just absolute incredible performance from RIX right there. And I'm super excited to see more of them later on in the tournament.
I agree. I think, thanks production, I was having a little sneaky yawn. Oh no. Anyway, I think RIX are looking really, really strong, and I think they are clearly like enjoying the current meta here, Hells. I think that's the most important thing. Doom on the Zaya, showing why such a powerful pick in this scenario. Like really, really good, keeps himself safe at all times. They had some really smart itemization. The Crystalline Reflector was a great pickup for SC7. It kept him alive for so much longer than some of these team fights. And as you mentioned, we didn't even get to see the Death Dance. But if the Death Dance had come through, that would have been the deal ender here for Team Queso if they were even on even pegging at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Like, their gameplay, their strategies are all perfect, but I also want to be highlighting the draft because RIX does have 2 coaches behind them, which is Mozilla and Dooms, I believe. And we can just see how good it is if you have coaches like that, right? Like, we both know Mozilla personally. If you have 2 of these very smart people behind the screens, you can clearly see the result that it delivers. The draft was just an instant win, really, for RIX Gaming. We knew it, like, when they reached the late game, instant win. And just, it's very good to see such a good team paired with such good brains behind the scenes, right? Like, it's really the perfect combo, and then also paired up with the perfect meta. I genuinely believe this is RIX's meta, and RIX is just far beyond any team, and I even dare to say that they're far beyond a team like Gamelord Excalibur.
Yes, it's an interesting one because Redemption felt like a big driving force of Gamelord in the previous win in the WREC, but he didn't shine as hard when we were in the AD carry meta last year. So now that we're kind of heading back towards the AD carry meta, you know, is there a chance that we're going to see RIX re-cement themselves as a very, very strong team, potentially the #1 team? Of course, that will only be decided in Barcelona at this point because RIX will be going on to join Gamelord in Barcelona and have their chance at getting revenge once again. But for the time being, Team Queso are going to have to work their way back through that lower bracket where they'll be facing one of our 2 teams from yesterday. And I'm sure, of course, I'm hoping, you know, Team Queso, a local Spanish team, hoping to get themselves on the board and then head over to Barcelona. By the way, looking at Olaf's damage, that shows you why Olaf is banned so frequently. 16k despite being on the losing side, and 11k from Joey despite having one of the lowest gold values in the entire game.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see, like, Team Queso still did a lot of damage, and that especially comes from that early game that they did. As you can see, like, in the early game, they were not necessarily ahead, but we can say that they were not behind. But then after that, it changed, right? Like, after that is when RIX was doing the damage and when RIX dominated the game. Which, yeah, definitely, RIX or Team Queso actually dealing surprising amount of damage, even though they lost the game pretty hard, Excalibur.
Yeah, they really did. They had a a load of damage. Like I said, those particular picks, like the Olaf and the Varus, they're really strong picks in general. And I think you can see why they, even in the losing scenario, why they are considered very high tier picks for competitive play. They're still able to pump out damage. They're still able to be useful and find that niche that they need to have. And I think that was a great display from Team Queso, even if they didn't manage to win the game. But let's take a look at the play of the game, guys, and see exactly which one was the highlight play from this match, Hells.
I believe it's going to be one of the turret dives or the last team fight. Let's take a look. It's actually one of the team fights that happened where SC7 had a beautiful ultimate action. And then, like, I want to highlight Snitch as well, right? Like, whatever is happening, Snitch just doesn't die on the Graves. And then right here, like, sure, Team Queso had a nice engage, but then you just cannot deal with Snitch on the Graves and with Doom on the Xayah anymore. That's the whole problem that Team Queso had. And then to top it off, also random on the Fiora, which in the late game would have gotten a death stance as well. You just cannot win the team fight. So despite Team Queso having a beautiful engage right there, you just can't win the team fight against this composition. The draft boxed them in, like you said, to really heavy AD. It meant that itemization was pretty easy. It meant that the Diana got a lot of value. The Crystalline Reflector was a great pickup as well. And the Xayah just meant that it was very difficult to lock down the actual AD carry, because that Featherstorm is obviously a really, really important ability to stop that single target lockdown from things like the Renekton. I also think that Vejos didn't get the chance to show his carry capabilities because a lot of his core champions were taken away from him, and then you could see he felt significantly less impactful when he wasn't able to have that solo carry performance like on something like the Akali. But let's take a look at the MVP Hells for this series. Who do you think it's going to be? If we look at the first series, Excandro, it's a bit obvious. I would definitely say Doom. As you can see, indeed Doom. Although in the first series, you could have given it to Clue as well, just for setting up this pentakill. But let's be honest. Doom on the Jinx, Doom on the Xayah, showing absolute dominance towards Joey, who we know is an incredible player, just toying with him like it's nothing. In the last game, winning with like a 5k gold lead, by the way, in 14 minutes. So just Doom completely outclassing the enemy ADC and absolute MVP in the game.
Yeah, Doom just really popping off here. You could see just using his opportunities to jump in, especially on the Xayah. I love that little play, the Proto Belt into the root to make sure that he's not getting taken out as easily by those Varus arrows. I think Doom definitely deserves it with a 21 KDA as well. Absolutely popped up. Did he actually only die once across this entire series? I think he only died once on the Jinx.
He only died when he got the pentakill.
Yeah, literally like, only died when he got the pentakill. Yeah. I think that was the play. But hey, look, that about rounds out our first series of the day. So we're looking forward to our second series now, which is going to be Viv versus Formulation. What are your sort of top line thoughts on that, Hells? Obviously, you're not going to be casting, so I'd love to hear your opinion on Viv versus Formulation before we go over to a break.
I think easy win. I think easy win Viv Esports. Although I may be underestimating Formulation, but that's my honest thoughts. I think Viv is going to take it very easily.
I think it'll be close. I do. I think that the Formulation have proven themselves quite handily in the WREC, so I'm very interested to see how this one pans out. But as I mentioned, as I alluded to, we've got a short break between our series. We are going to say goodbye to Hells and welcome back Stu, and we'll dive straight into that second series after the break.